Hello, 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 and welcome back to my channel. I am so glad to be back talking about the book of Esther. This is one of my favorite books in the Bible. There's so much in this story. There are things about relationships, about societal norms, about politics, all in this short book. I'm so glad that you clicked on this video to join me. And I hope to bring a fresh perspective to the book of Esther. If you haven't already, I have a playlist of 1-minute summaries of all the chapters in the book. You can go there and check out those summaries. It is the best 1-minute summaries of the book of Esther on the entire internet. You're going to love it. So the first thing I want to do is present to you the characters who are in the first chapter. So I have my notes here. I have my lovely Bible here, the King James Version, and I also have my computer right here. Okay, so the people who are presented in the first chapter are King Ahasuerus, Queen Vashti, the 7 chamberlains who are his trusted attendees, and they were Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigthan, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass. Then there were the 7 princes of Persia and Media, and these were his advisors according to the law. They were Karshina, Sethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Maris, Marcina, and Memucan. And some of these people have a pivotal role in what is going to take place in this book. Then finally, we have the nobles and the people of the kingdom. So now, let's get into it. Verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India unto Ethiopia over 127 provinces. That in those days, when the king Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces before him. Let's just consider that the A list. When he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. Now let's just stop right there and think about that. Now the first 4 chapters just indicate the depth of this king's wealth. It tells us that he reigned over 127 provinces. Then it goes on to tell us that he holds a feast. This is a 180-day feast. This is 180 days. That's 6 months. A 6-month feast. And while he's doing it, he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty. And when these days, verse 5, when these days were expired, okay, 180 days, that's done. The king made a feast unto all the people that were present in Shushan the palace, both unto great and small, 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillars of marble. Let's just roll that back a minute. He has a feast for 180 days for the A list. And then he holds another feast. He extends it another 7 days. And who is this for? This is for everyone who happens to be in Shushan at the time. No matter what your status was, great or small, You were welcome, invited to this feast. And where was the feast? In the palace garden. And then it describes some of the things that were in the garden. It tells us that the draperies were white, green, and blue. And they were fastened with cords of linen and purple to silver rings and marble pillars. Then it tells us that the beds were of gold and silver. This is in verse 6. Upon a pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. Verse 7 tells us, now listen to this. And they gave them, the people at the feast, they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse one from another. That the goblets, the golden goblets, were all different. They were given drink in vessels of gold. All the vessels were different from one another. And they were given royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. Now, honestly, when I read that, the first thing that came to my mind was that the king is generous. That is the very first thing that I thought. He is generous. In verse 8, it says, and the drinking was according to the law. None did compel. For so the king had appointed to all the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. So you could drink as much as you want. No judgment zone. You could drink as much as you wanted, as little as you wanted, or not at all. Right? Now, verse 9. Verse 9 is where Queen Vashti is presented. Also, Vashti the queen made a feast for the women in the royal house, which belonged to King Ahasuerus. Now I'm going to stop right there, because the thing that stood out to me in this verse was that the writer found it important to indicate that she was in a house, in the royal house, that belonged to the king. Now, one of my very first thoughts was also, well, whose else house was she going to be in? I mean, that was just my first thought, but to have them pointed out, I'm thinking that there's something to this. So in verse 10, it says, on the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Memuhan, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, and Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princes her beauty, for she was fair to look on. So the king has been drinking many days. His heart is merry. And he decides that he wants to show off his beautiful queen, his beautiful wife. In verse 12, but the queen Vashti refused to come at the commandment of the king by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned in him. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew the law and judgment. In other words, he's doing what was appropriate. Something went wrong. Someone did not obey, even though we're talking about the queen, did not obey the commandment. And he looked to his advisors to tell him what should be done. And the next unto him was Karshina, Sethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Mares, Marsina, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to the law? Because she has not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains. And Memucan answered. Now, I just want to say, listen, there's always one. There's always one that is going to say something. So we have Memucan. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti, the queen, have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus. Now, look, obviously, he was trying to make a point. He said all 3 times. 3 times. I just felt like that's just a little bit dramatic, but listen to what he says. In verse 17, he said, for this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so they shall despise their husbands in their eyes. When it shall be reported, the king Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise, shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen, thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes that it cannot be altered, that Vashti come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. Whew, let's just stop. Let's just pause. Let's just pause right there for Sister Vashti. Let's have a moment of silence. Because right there, she's about to be banished. So let's unpack this for a minute. We have the king asking his advisor. We have the one who speaks up, Memucan, and talks about how it's going to affect all the other women when they hear it, and they're going to act contemptuous, just like the queen. Now, personally, I found it a little offensive to think that all the women were going to follow this one woman's behavior. I just thought it was a little offensive. And here's another thing that I thought about too. Every wife should be free to say no in her house, to say no, to be frustrated, to be angry, to be disappointed, to be sad. Every woman should be free to express those emotions to her husband. That whole piece right there, there's a lot in that piece. If you have any thoughts that came to you when you read it, please put it down below. Now, verse 20. And when the king's decree, this is Memucan, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Memucan. Now, I want to stop right there and talk about influence. Who would have thought that someone in her circle or outer circle would have had that much influence on her destiny? And the same with us. Who is in our circle? Who's in our outer circle that can affect our lives, almost turn your life upside down or right side up. When I thought about this, Memucan did not offer Vashti a second chance. He didn't offer her some friendly advice. He didn't offer her mercy. She got no consideration. She wasn't given that opportunity to rethink the matter. And verse 22, the last verse, when he sent letters into all the king's provinces, into every province, according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, that every man, and this is what it said, right? That every man should bear rule in his own house, and that it should be published according to the language of every people. So thank you for joining me for chapter 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for chapter 2. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for joining me.